I'm reading this book in Hindi by this famous author here, Premchand. So it goes like the story that really interested me even as a kid was this Namak ka Daroga, loosely translated as Inspector of Salt or the Salt Inspector. Every time I read it, it's really emotional when you like it. It's a lot of values, etc. So, when a new department of salt was made, and when the free gifts of nature are turned into an economic good, people clandestinely start pilferage. Many underhand dealings begin, and like for example there's bribery, there are some cunning smartness, etc. The officers had a good income. Builders and the village patwari. The patwaris are the village accountants that maintain the ownership records, or they maintain such registers. They readily left their professions to join this department. Even lawyers were tempted to take the job of a Daroga, that is inspector, in that area. This was a time when English education and Christianity was considered to be one and the same thing. Persian language was dominant. Persian speakers used to get appointed to the highest post by reading love stories and poetry of love. I mean, that it was that strong a language. Munshi Vanchidhar, this is a person on which the whole story revolves, the officer or the who big. So Munshi Vanchidhar also finished the story of Zulekha's separation and went in search of employment, considering the love story of Siri and Farhad to be more important than the battle of Nal and Neel and the discovery of America. So tongue-in-cheek he writes that it was more important to know the Persian language and its literature rather than anything else. So Munshi Vanchidhar's father was an experienced person. He explained, "Son, can you see the condition? I mean, you can see the condition of the house. We are under the strain of credit. The girls are growing up like ordinary grass." And he says, "I'm turning into a drying up tree. And I really don't know when will I fall. And you are the Lord of the house now. So now that you're going out for a job, don't bother to see the position of the employment. That's like a shrine of the saint. Just keep an eye on the offering and the sheet. Sheet as in the mantle as it's kept. That is the offerings that are made there. That the sheet that cover it. Look for a job that has more of income from above. Monthly wage is like the full moon. It is seen only for a day, then it goes on waning, diminishing, and soon it diminishes and disappears." So having said that, then he talked about income from above. He says top income from above is like a spring that satiates the thirst. Wage doesn't increase, but the top income is given by God. And it is the only one that can bring growth. And you yourself are wise. What should I say? What should I explain? But he said, for this it is necessary to have good sense. See the man, see his needs, and see the occasion, and then depart accordingly. The one who are aggressive, one can be a little strict with them. It is profitable to be strict with them. But the ones who are truthful, with and true to their religion, that kind of stance if they have, it is difficult to get them to agree to toe the line. So you must adjust accordingly. And he said, just keep these words of mine in your mind. This is my lifetime experience. So his father blessed him after the piece of advice. Banshidhar was an obedient son. He carefully listened to the words of his father and he set out of the house. In this expanse world, patience was his friend, intellect was his torch, the beacon light, self-discipline was his guide, and his stars were lucky. So as soon as he left, he didn't have to wait long. He got a job as a salt inspector. The pay scale was good and there was no end to underhand earning. That is bribe. So that the scope of bribe was immense. When his father got to hear the news, he was filled up with happiness. He was overjoyed. The creditors became a little soft with him because now they knew that his son was working. Of course, the neighbors' hearts were like daggers. They were so jealous. So now think of a scene. The scene is winter night time. The salt constables and watchmen were intoxicated. And talking about Munshi Banshidhar, within this brief, it's 6 months gone by now, and within this period of 6 months, Munshi Banshidhar had impressed his officers with his work and good behavior and had earned their trust. So there was this Jamuna river that was flowing a mile away from the salt office, and you could hear the sound of the river. The bridge on it was made with boats. The inspector was in sweet slumber in the bolted room. Suddenly his eyes opened, and instead of the sound of the flowing water, he heard the sound of bullock carts. He got up. He wondered, in the dead of night, why were the carts crossing the bridge? Surely there must be something fishy. And just to find out for himself, he wore on the uniform, put the pistol in his pocket. He mounted his horse and reached the bridge. There he saw a long line of carts on the bridge. And in a terse voice asked, "Whose carts are these?" For a little time there was silence. So there was a lot of whispering out there, and then one cart driver replied, "Pandit Alopidine's." "Who Pandit Alopidine?" thundered he. "Of Dataganj," they said. Banshidhar got a start. Pandit Alopidine was the most respected zamindar of the area. His business was in lakhs. All big and small people were his debtors here. His trade was widespread all over. He was a well-known man. The English officers, whenever they came for hunting, they enjoyed his hospitality, and he was a very good host to all of them, almost 12 months a year. So, Munshi Vanshidhar questioned, "Where are these carts going to?" The answer was Kanpur. But when he questioned them as to what was in there was a deafening silence. His doubts enhanced. He waited for an answer, but when none came, he thundered, "Have you all become dumb?" I asked, "What are you lugging in the carts?" When no one answered, he took his steed to the side of the cart and felt the sack. His doubts were clear. These were stones of salt. Now, Pandit Alopidin, to whom the carts belonged, used to come by in his decorated chariot, half asleep, half awake, whenever such an eventuality arose. Suddenly, some upset cart drivers woke him up and said, "Lord, the Daroga, that is the inspector, has stopped the carts and he's asking for you." Pandit Alopidin had immense faith on Mother Lakshmi, that is goddess of wealth. He would often say that what to talk about the world, even in the heavens, the Lakshmi ruled. The goddess Lakshmi ruled. His saying was true because justice and policies were Lakshmi's playthings. She could make them dance the way she wanted. So, still lying down, he said with pride, "I'll go, I'll be on my way." And he unhurriedly put 2 pans in his mouth, they're like mouth fresheners, and wrapped a shawl. And then he came face to face with the inspector and greeted him with a salutation. "Sir, my blessings. Tell me, what crime have I committed that you have stopped my carts? You should at least consider us benevolent Brahmins under your kind gaze." Vanshidhar replied curtly, "Government orders." Pandit Alopidin laughingly said, "I don't know about government orders and the government. My government is you. Mine and yours is a matter of in-house decision. How can I ever get out from your orders? You unnecessarily troubled yourself. It just can't be that I go from this place and not give a present to the god of the pier here or the place. I, for one, was actually on my way to meet you." The flute playing opulence did not affect him. He didn't like the way he was going about. The newborn passion of honesty was upon him, the inspector. So he didn't like all of what he was what he was saying. So he said reprimandingly that he was not one of those who sold their souls for money, and said, "You are under arrest. You will have to follow rules. Enough, I have no time for more talk." Jamadar Baddu Singh, he said, commanded, "I command you to arrest him." Pandit Alopidin was stunned. There was a pandemonium amongst the cart drivers. For Panditji, it was the first time perhaps he came across such strong language. Badlu Singh too hesitated to even hold his hands. Panditji had never ever seen his wealth being tossed away by values. So he thought of Vanshidhar. He sort of understood that Vanshidhar was a dutiful boy who was away from the avarice and attachment, and was nonchalant and all of that. I mean, he was a upright person. So with extreme humility, he begged, saying, "Sir, please don't do this. I'll be finished. All my respect that I've earned will be interred in the soil." Haltingly, he said, "What will you get by putting me down?" He replied, I mean, you can do everything you want to. I'm not outside you anyways, sort of. So he was very angry. He said, Vanshidhar, he replied authoritatively, "I don't want to hear such talk." Alopidin, who had relied on his rock, that is his wealth, it all seemed slipping off. Self-respect and wealth, opulence, all got a good dousing. He still had full faith in numbers of wealth now. He ordered his accountant to shell out 1,000 rupees to Sir. "You're like a hungry lion," Vanshidhar angrily retorted. "Not 1,000, not a lakh. That'll deter me from the correct path." He was irritated with the senseless fight of dharma and such godly sacrifice. The war, both between duty and wealth, began. For example, the wealth jumped and attacked from 1 to 5,000, 5 to 10,000, 10 to 15,000, 15 to 20. But truth stood alone, steadfast, like an unmovable mountain. It did not deter the Daroga, that is the inspector. Alopidin, in a hopeless tone, stated that he couldn't further go on. He could not afford more. Now he said, "It's all up to you." Vanshidhar again ordered his Jamadar, the officer, Badlu Singh, who in his mind was cursing the inspector, as he went forward to Pandit Alopidin. Panditji, in his haste, went back a few paces back. He said with nearly groveling on the ground humility, "Sir, for God's sake, take pity on me. I'm ready to sell for 25,000. "Impossible," said he. 30. He said, "No," etc. And then he, "Not even 40 lakhs, he said. And Badlu Singh, "Arrest this man. I don't want to hear anything." The dharma, that is truth, had squashed wealth. Alopidin undoubtedly was a strong man. And when he saw this man coming towards him with the shackles, all he could feel was a sense of hopelessness and defeat, and he fainted and fell down. The world slept, but its tongues were awake. Morning saw the children and old alike had this news on their lips. Wherever it was seen, there was a discussion of Panditji's behavior. People were enjoying assassinating his character, felt as if Rather, it's written, it felt as if the sin had now disappeared from the world now that he was arrested. The milkman who sold water in the name of milk, imaginary data filling up offices, the clerks who indulge in ticketless traveling, people who were in the business of making false documents, all of them were shaking their heads like gods. It's very easy to pass judgment when it's somebody else's caught. That's how he's written it so well. And on the next day, when Pandit Alopidin was going handcuffed with the constables alongside, with his head hung in shame, on the way to the court, it seemed that the entire township was in a furor. So everybody's eyes were on him. They were curious. The crowd was everywhere. One could not distinguish between the wall and the terrace. So all this about shame, etc., was just till when they reached the court. As soon as they reached the court, the tables were turned. Pandit Alopidin was a lion of this particular jungle. The officers were his devotees. The people there were servants. The lawyers, counsels were his obediently. The orderly peons were his slave without any money, etc. Seeing him, the people there ran from all four directions. All were surprised, not about the act of Alopidin, but the fact that how did he come into the clutches of the law? A person who had limitless wealth, unmatched eloquence, for how could he come into the clutches of the law? They could not imagine. Everyone there was showing their sympathy. An army of lawyers were hired by Alopidin, Pandit Alopidin. In the ground of justice, the two war between truth and wealth was going to be essayed. Vanshidhar was standing quietly. He had no strength but the truth, no weapon but his clear conscience and his communication skills. And there were witnesses, but they were bought over. He felt that he felt that as if there was no sign of justice. This was a platform, this was a court, a darbar of justice, but the officials were intoxicated with bias and favoritism. And you do know that where there is favoritism, one can't even imagine justice. Because bias and favoritism, or prejudice and favoritism, cannot go together. Justice cannot go together. Hence, what happened? The trial ended shortly, very soon. So then, the deputy magistrate wrote in his proposal, the evidence given against Pandit Alopidin is baseless and false. He is a very big man. It is beyond imagination that he would have dared to do such a thing for a small benefit. Although the salt inspector Munshi Vanshidhar is not much to blame, but it is a matter of great regret that due to his arrogance and thoughtlessness, a good man had to suffer. We are happy that he is alert and cautious in his work, but the increased salt in the salt case has corrupted his conscience and intelligence. So he should be careful in future. So this was the judgment written. The lawyers, when they heard the verdict, they were overjoyed. Pandit Alopidin came out smiling. His relatives showered money. There was a sea of generosity surged. And it seemed as if the very foundations of the court was they were shaken. When Vanshidhar came out, there was from all sides sarcasm raining on him. So everyone had some harsh word. Every gesture was igniting the fire of their pride. Perhaps he would not have walked around with such arrogance after winning his trial case. Today he had a sad and strange experience of the world. Justice and scholarship, long titles, big beards, loose robes, none of these are worthy of true respect. So this is what is written, that justice and scholarship, long titles, big beards, he felt, loose robes, none of these are worthy of true respect. So it's very subjective. The wealth had won. That's what he writes. Vanshidhar had bought enmity with money. So it was necessary to pay its price. So the suspension order was there even before the week had passed. He was punished for his laxity. So he was ready to go home with a broken heart, grief and regret. And there his father already had got the news. He was grumbling that he had explained to this boy before leaving but he did not listen to a single word. He does everything as he pleases. So he says, he went on, he felt so bad, he's cribbing. He said, I have to bear the demands of the blacksmith and the butcher, sit as a devotee in the old age, and there is only the same dry salary. I have also worked and was not in any position, but I worked, did it wholeheartedly, and you, that is his son, trying to become honest, even if there is darkness in the house. He says, what is the great fun or wisdom of lighting a lamp in the mosque when there is darkness in the house? So he says, what is this? What sort of understanding is all this? What sort of honesty is this? All the education has gone away. So a few days after this, when Munshi Vanshidhar reached home in this miserable condition and the old father heard the news, he beat his head. He said, I feel like breaking your head and mine. He kept rubbing his hands in remorse for a long time. He also said some harsh things in anger, and if Vanshidhar had not moved away from there, then surely he would have broken his head. It's written. It would have happened. So anger took a terrible form. His mother also felt sad. His old mother felt sad. The wishes of visiting Jagannath and Rameshwar was shattered. The wife did not even talk to him directly for many days. So another week passed in this manner. Now again, let's see the scene. The scene is evening time. The old Munshiji was sitting and chanting the name of Ram. At that moment, a decorated chariot stopped at his door. Green and pink curtains, a pair of bulls, blue threads around their necks, horns studded with brass. Many servants were accompanying them with sticks on their shoulders. Munshiji ran to receive him and saw that it was Pandit Alopidin. He bowed down and started praising him. Our fortune has risen that your feet have come to this door. You are a revered deity. What face should I show to you? My face is smeared with soot. But what to do? The boy is unfortunate. Otherwise, why should I have to hide my face from you? God may keep him childless, but may not give him such a child. Alopidin said, No, brother, don't say that. Munshi was surprised and said, What else can I do with such a child? Alopidin said in a loving voice, How many such pious people are there in this world who can sacrifice everything for the sake of truth and bring glory to their family and ancestors? Pandit Alopidin said to Vanshidhar, Inspector, don't think of this as flattery. I didn't need to take so much trouble to flatter. That night, you took me into your custody by force of your authority, but today I have come into your custody voluntarily. I have seen thousands of nobles and rich people. I have dealt with thousands of high officials, but you defeated me. I left everyone as my slave and slave of my wealth. Please allow me to make a request to you. When Vanshidhar saw Alopidan coming, he got up and greeted him, but with self-respect. He understood that this gentleman has come to shame and humiliate him, he thought. He did not try to apologize, rather he found his father's flattery unbearable. But when he heard Panditji's words, the impurity in his mind vanished. I mean, what he was feeling against him just melted. His heart melted rather. He looked at Panditji with a fleeting glance. His goodwill was visible. Pride bowed its head in shame. He said shyly, "It is your generosity that you say this. Please forgive me for being impolite. I was bound by the shackles of religion. Others, I am your slave. Whatever order you give, I will obey it." Alopidan said humbly, "You did not accept my request on the river bank, but today you will have to accept it." Vanshidhar said, "What am I capable of? But whatever service I can render, there will be no mistake in it." Alopidan took out a stamped letter and placed it in front of Vanshidhar and said, "Accept this post and sign it. I am a Brahmin. I will not leave the door until you answer this question." When Munshi Vanshidhar read the paper, his eyes filled with tears of gratitude. Pandit Alopidan had appointed him as the permanent manager of his entire property. So, tears of gratitude. Pandit Alopidan had appointed him as a permanent manager of his entire property, apart from a salary of 6,000 rupees per year. Just imagine in those days. He got extra daily expenses, a horse for riding, a bungalow to live in, and free servants. He said in a trembling voice, "Panditji, I am not capable enough to appreciate your generosity, but I am not worthy of such a high position." Alopidan laughed and said, "At this time, I need an incompetent person." Vanshidhar said in a serious tone, "I am your servant. It is my good fortune to serve a famous and a noble man like you, but I have neither knowledge nor intelligence nor the nature that can make up for these shortcomings. For such a great task, a very knowledgeable and experienced person is needed." Alopidan took out a pen from the pen holder and giving it to Vanshidhar said, "I neither want scholarship, nor experience, nor insight, nor efficiency. I have already realized the importance of these qualities. Now good luck and good opportunity have given me that pearl in front of which the shine of ability and scholarship fades. Take this pen, do not think too much, sign. I pray to God that He always keeps you the same riverbank, ruthless, unruly, harsh, but righteous police inspector." Vanshidhar's eyes welled up with tears. His heart could not contain such a huge gratitude. He once again looked at Panditji with devotion and reverence and signed the managerial papers with trembling hands. Alopidan was overjoyed and embraced him. So truth did prevail. So he was hugely rewarded. That was a lovely story. So this is a book of short stories. Give you the ISBN number, and that's what I translated. Namak Daroga. That is a salt inspector.